Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 5th episode of the story in which Naruto has the Kyuubi sealed inside him, but with an unusual twist. The sealing has changed, and a new bloodline has emerged. Naruto intends to use these abilities to become Hokage and change Konoha's clans. Will he survive long enough to carry out the changes? This story is from Tongues. Please support him, her. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Naruto had just dropped in on Hinata, Temari, and Tenten all sitting in a tea shop, talking about him and the naughty things they planned on doing to him when he returned. Of course, for the past 5 years, Naruto had never once sent word of his status to any of them, rarely leaving the realm of summons. Thus, when he jumped down, he expected a far different reaction. In his version, they would all see him, shed a few tears, and hug him, telling him never to leave again. You leave for 5 years, send no word back to US, and all you have to say is, hi. He was on the ground a moment later, having been hit by 3 very angry women, and 3 large lumps began forming on his head. Deciding they probably wouldn't hit him if he stayed down, Naruto just lay there. However, he was wrong. How dare you come back like that? No gifts, no apologies. You expect us to just jump at you or something? The 3 angered kunoichi yelled in unison. They, of course, were all not that angry at him, but they were caught up in the moment. Even Hinata, who was usually the group's softie, was joining in, and an angered Hinata is never a good thing for anyone. As they yelled this, they began kicking him around, then after a minute or two, returned to their table, sat down, and waited for their fiancé to respond. Inside Naruto's head, all he could think was stupid, 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 stupid. Slowly rising to his feet, he channeled a little of his now green-tailed chakra into various parts of his body, healing instantly. Walking over to the table, he grabbed a chair, and sat down, then looked at all of them. Temari still looked angry, as did Tenten, and Hinata was doing her best to look angry but she just couldn't hold the facade. Hinata threw herself into his arms, hugging him and sitting on his lap, then reaching up and giving him a long deep kiss, lasting over 5 minutes. Their tongues locked, as it deepened, but they were eventually broken apart from the sound of throats being cleared by more than just the other girls at the table. Naruto shrugged this off, and would have continued, had Hinata not retracted in embarrassment. However, she remained in his lap. Temari looked at him again, happy to have him back around, but she was really curious. He was wielding ki, he'd accessed Kyuubi's chakra that easily, and his eyes, instead of 4 seals in them, now had 14 seals in a spiraling pattern in each eye. Tenten, also curious, decided to voice her thoughts in a still brash manner. Naruto-kun. Why are your eyes like that? Before he could give a response, Temari interrupted. Look, you know we still love you, but buddy, you have a lot of explaining to do. The other 2 kunoichi nodded in agreement, and Naruto just sighed. They followed him back to the house, and he led them into the living room, now decorated with the 3 girls' stuff, not that Naruto minded. This is gonna take a while. So get comfortable. And with that, Naruto began his 9-hour long explanation of his travels, and by the end, they all were slack-jawed, and tired. However, Hinata was not tired from the story, she was tired from waiting. Several times during the conversation, both Temari and Tenten had used signs they'd picked up from Hinata, who was now an ANBU, to tell her to get him tonight, so they could have their turns. They certainly weren't pressuring her, she was just as eager as they, but she wanted him in the best shape possible for doing so, and thus the 3 of them would plan for her to get him tomorrow night, by any means necessary. After the long story, all of them felt it was just time to go to bed, and after giving each of them a kiss, Naruto retreated to the master bedroom, his bedroom, and fell into a sweet, dreamless sleep. Next morning, Naruto woke up later than usual, around 10 a.m. Given that he'd been getting up at 6 a.m. every day for the past 5 years, Naruto was rather surprised that it was so late, and suspected maybe his fiancées had put something in his food last night so that they could sneak off in the morning. However, he doubted it since foreign substances rarely, if ever, affected him. No, Naruto was not worried. He'd just had a rough day before, and decided it would be best if he saw the Hokage as soon as possible. Undressing, Naruto went into the large walk-in bathroom situated in the master bedroom, and took a shower, a long one in order to clear his head. To get the water to the proper temperature quickly, Naruto used a heat adjustment seal on his body, one of his more useful inventions, the seal appearing then quickly disappearing once again. After the shower, he stepped out into his room, and to his surprise, pancakes and the rest of breakfast were sitting on a table in the room. Next to the plates was a note from Hinata that simply said, "Naruto-kun, we are all going shopping today for things. So we made you breakfast before we left. Be sure to be back early tonight, we'll see you later." Hinata, 1010, Temari. Naruto was happy to get his breakfast made for him for once. Last night had been startling. Eating meat cooked over the fire for a long time can get repetitive, but by no means bad, except when compared to an actual dinner. Last night, for the first time in many years, he'd eaten ramen. The food of gods. Naruto had always loved ramen, and went to Ichiraku's at least once a week, eating at least 10 bowls each visit. Of course, the girls knew this, and sent out for some, Naruto being surprised when some genin delivered it. Apparently it was a drank mission to bring food to the Namikaze estate, and with the fortune Naruto had, the tip the genin got was their pay. Needless to say, they were well rewarded by the ramen-hungry blonde. All conversation stopped when he began eating, 5 minutes later having eaten all 12 bowls he'd ordered, and eyeing some of Temari's, as she had ordered 3. Now, after eating the pancakes with syrup and butter, a muffin, some fruit, and downing a few glasses of orange juice, Naruto let out a satisfied sigh, and noticed he was still naked. Slightly embarrassed, but happy no one was around, he looked for his clothes, which had changed some in the past few years. Naruto was now wearing a black shirt, loose, with a blue spiral on the front, his clan symbol. Over this he wore a white jacket, the sleeves tattered at his elbows, torn off so that he could easily reach some of the various seal releases he'd placed on himself. It also had a red spiral symbol on the back. The jacket was similar to his trench coat, only needing fewer seals, as this jacket was meant for combat, whereas the trench coat was meant for long journeys. Having filled all the seals in it the night before, Naruto simply picked it up, activated his usual gravity seals, and pumped chakra into the jacket to make it denser, like his usual 3 layers of armor. Having added the elemental resistance seal, Naruto was also immune to most low-level elemental jutsu, his jacket being able to cancel them out. Putting on 2 of his 3 combat belts, each with seals on them with various functions, Naruto used one to attach ki to his back, choosing not to bother to stick it there with chakra. Then, putting on his standard black ninja pants, which were actually more like shorts, tattered just below the knees to not get in the way of his combat style, Naruto was about ready to set off. Then, he remembered something. Grabbing a familiar bronze chain off of the night table, he wrapped it around his left arm. The chain links changed from 1 inch long each to half an inch each, and the chain grew by another foot. Despite not being really attached, the chain stayed where it was, giving off a dull golden glow, barely noticeable. Naruto just thought to himself, right, can't leave without that. Putting his hair into a ponytail and checking over all his equipment again, Naruto was sure he had everything, and leapt off in the direction of the Hokage Tower. Arriving in seconds, thanks to Hiruzen timed seals, Naruto walked inside. Seeing the secretary, Naruto almost fainted. Ino Yamanaka, wearing a tight white t-shirt with a chunin vest over it and a pair of jeans, was sitting behind the desk flipping a kunai to herself. Her eyes were closed, and she seemed to be lost in thought. However, whatever she was thinking about must have been either naughty, or the room was cold, because her nipples were erect, both her considerable breasts stretching against the fabric, as if they were trying to escape, or draw others in. Naruto, ignoring her obvious assets with the help of some naughty thoughts of his fiancées, walked up to the desk. Standing there, he rang the little bell on her table to get her attention, and hilarious results ensued. "Oh, Naruto-kun, please, right there," she moaned, right before he struck the bell. She sat up abruptly, and shouted, "I'm not asleep," to seemingly no one, before taking in her surroundings. Seeing him, she almost blushed, but then decided to try something Anko had talked to her about once. "Naruto-kun," she said seductively, licking the kunai in her hand. "Wanna guess what I was dreaming about? I'd be happy to show you." Naruto thought more naughty thoughts of his fiancées to get his mind off her, and replied calmly, "Sorry Inakan, but dreams like that don't become reality. Now, is the Hokage busy, or can I go in?" Ino was just about to tell him the Hokage wasn't there, except for the fact that the woman showed up just behind him. Tapping Naruto on the shoulder, the blonde-haired woman looked over the blonde's shoulder at his pants, then grinned lecherously before stepping into her office, inviting Naruto in. A kunai nearly hit the Hokage, but she dodged, wondering what could have made her second assistant act that way, but brushing it off. Sitting down at her desk, Tsunade looked at the man who stood before her, then spoke. "Naruto, I read the report you gave me about you, so I am aware of your abilities, or at least most of them. I also know about your dream to become Hokage. What I am about to offer you is to remain top secret until the time that I decide the public must know." Placing a silencing seal around the office, Tsunade continued. "Naruto, I offer you the position of the Rokudaime Hokage, on one condition." Naruto was ecstatic. He didn't think such a thing could ever happen so soon. A Hokage at just 18 years old, what more could he have wanted? "What's the condition?" "Every Hokage before you has taken a Genin team to lead, or an apprentice, until their students became at least Chunin. The Yondaime even led his team until they were Jounin. What you must do, as a condition of gaining this position, is to lead a Genin team until they all become Chunin. Now, with the coming war, our rate of getting ninja from the academy to Chunin level is going to have to increase, and that should speed up the process, but the village may also need you on the front lines. I will leave it in my will of stead that if I die, you will be the Hokage, but until that happens, you will need to lead a team. The next round of academy students are set to graduate in a week. So in 6 days come meet me and the other Jounin senseis at the lounge. Also, as of right now, you are a Jounin." Tossing the blonde-haired man a Jounin vest, which she'd produced from a drawer of the desk, Tsunade then turned to the window, to say the last she needed to. "Namazuke's Uzumaki Naruto, successor to Hokage, do you accept this, and will you lead as a member of Konoha?" "I will," was all Naruto had to say. "Dismissed," Tsunade stated quietly. However, in her head, a party was going on. First I'm forced into this job, then they give me a secretary who takes after Anko, then they give me everlasting paperwork. When Naruto is Hokage and I'm free from this ghastly vocation, I'm going to go to every bar in Fire Country and finally get some sake and gambling action." Naruto disappeared, and Tsunade pulled out a bottle of store-bought sake. It was the only stuff she'd been able to sneak in since Shizune was watching her. Giggling like a schoolgirl, she enjoyed what little she could get. That is, until Ino came in with paperwork. She grumbled, then went back to work. It was gonna be a long day. Elsewhere, Naruto was wandering. Having put on his Jounin vest, he decided he'd just check out the village, and see how much it had changed. The village was completely repaired from the invasion oh so long ago, and new buildings were up. The civilian population was still pleasant, and Naruto was happy about this, but decided to get away from the crowds. Jumping out of the main market, he followed a side road, and soon found himself in front of the academy. With a pang of grief, he remembered when he'd first met Aliera there, again, so long ago, and a pulse of green chakra was released from Ki, as if in response to the memory. Walking in, he saw Aliera's replacement, a chunin whom Naruto didn't know, but she was pretty enough. She had a sword too, a plain katana leaning in the same place Aliera had had hers. It was a weekday, and the academy was in session, so of course Naruto wanted to visit, but he didn't want to disturb the woman. Quietly knocking on Irika's door, a door that he would now almost need to duck for with his massive 6 feet 2 inches frame, the door was soon opened. Irika looked up at the man before him, and seeing ki pulsing gently, instantly knew who it was. Naruto, the man said enthusiastically, before embracing him. Naruto embraced the man as well, then pulled back, saying, "I missed seeing you too. It's been a long time." Inviting the blonde and Irika took his position at the front of the class again, and motioned for Naruto to stand next to him. Complying, Naruto looked out over the ranks of academy students, soon to be Genin. Grinning, he thought to himself, soon some of these will be under my tutelage. Wonder how they'll do. Hope they're not as cocky as I was at their age. Class, Irika began, almost dramatically. I would like to introduce to you Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. He is the son of the Yondaime, and is the true owner of the Namikaze estate. Naruto was shocked that his heritage was common knowledge, but then, a lot can change in 5 years. He hid his shock well, and allowed the person he'd looked up to when he was a mere assistant to continue. However, he did not, and motioned for Naruto to speak. Slightly nervous, the blonde began. Ahem, yes, that is correct. I would like to stay here with you all to just observe your class, if I may, because this year I will have 3 of you under my tutelage. The class looked awed at that, and a little girl raised her hand. Is it true you're stronger than the Hokage? Naruto shifted uncomfortably, but answered nonetheless. I don't really know, I've never fought her. I know I'm at least Kage level though, so I hope that answers your question. Another girl raised her hand and called out. If you're such a strong ninja, then how come we've only ever heard about you? How come we've never seen you before? Again, uncomfortable. For the last 5 years, I've been out on a training journey. I was only a chunin when I left, so you probably didn't know about me back then. This time a boy raised his hand. He looked to be the so-called badass of the class, as many girls had hearts in their eyes when he spoke. Chunin are only allowed out on missions, wouldn't you be labeled a missing ninja? And what did you do other than train? No one would voluntarily live in isolation that long. Ah, that's where you're wrong. I was not in isolation. In fact, I spent the equivalent of 9 years training, and with a few hundred Kage Bunshin helping per day, I probably got in several lifetimes of training in that time. You see, I spent most of my time within the summoning plane. With these guys. Biting his thumb, Naruto made 5 hand seals then shouted, Kuchios no Jutsu, summoning a 2-foot-tall 3-toed sloth, who waved his hand at the class and said, Yo. The class was in awe at the creature, and several of the girls screamed, Kawaii, before the creature looked to Naruto and said, Nizan? Why am I here? Felt like it, Naruto responded in a noncommittal fashion. Now, I suggest you go back to the summoning plane before you get glomped. Tossing the creature a kelch leaf, a leaf which apparently only grew in rock country on the border and were apparently good eaten as the sloths called it, the sloth smiled happily, and began to nibble on it as he poofed away, much to the disappointment of several girls. As for why I wasn't labeled a missing nin, I was on a mission, and you're right, I did more than just train, I'm just not gonna tell you what else I did. Now, any more questions? A boy raised his hand. Getting a nod from Naruto, he spoke in a rather exuberant voice, You're the one who makes those hoverboard things, right? Could you make us some? Naruto smiled, happy that his fame as a seal master had spread a little with the creation of those boards. Nope, sorry. I can only make them for ANBU use, or for certain others. Plus, you couldn't use it anyway, I doubt you have Jounin level chakra. The boy looked disappointed, but soon brightened up again. Questions continued for a short while, before the lunch bell rang. The students all went outside for lunch, while Naruto and Iruka talked catching up since old times. Soon they returned, and class resumed as usual. Naruto found he liked most of the students, none of them really seeming to have any problems with the class. Some were excelling, others lagging behind a little, but all of them seemed to have a pretty good attitude, even the fangirls. However, this wasn't the only graduating class. With the coming war, another class was going to graduate, and thus Naruto really didn't know who he'd be getting. Staying until class ended, Naruto decided he may as well go home. However, upon leaving the building, he saw a lone boy sitting on a swing, all alone. Walking over to the boy, Naruto saw he was crying. "Excuse me? I'm sorry, but why are you crying?" The boy just began to cry harder, then after a few minutes wiped his eyes and looked up. Seeing the Uzumaki spiral, the boy immediately knew who this was, the man who was probably strongest in Konoha. I'm going to fail again. I can't do anything right, other than knife throwing. I'm from a non-ninja family. I have no one to teach me since everyone is so focused on the prodigies. I can't afford to fail again, but there's nothing I can do. Shoo, it's okay. What's your name? Vladimir Taltos. The boy said, stopping his flow of tears. Taltos No name clan my ass, they had freaking dragons. I met a few of those on the border, hell of a clan. Too bad Rock wiped them out. He must be the last of them. Just like me, the last of a clan. What was it Tsunade said? I can either take a team, or an apprentice. Maybe I should. He can't be that bad, right? And he seems to want to work. Plus, I can't teach Fujinjutsu to an entire team, it would be far too difficult. Plus, if I have one, I can bring him on harder missions, even into the war. That is if his parents allow it. Vlad. How would you feel about becoming my apprentice? Of course, you'd have to ask your parents first, but you'd come with me on missions, and I'd train you personally. All you need to do is pass as a genin, and I can help with that. What do you say? No one had ever reached out to him like that before, and it was all the boy could do to keep from crying again. Throwing himself at the blonde man, he hugged him tight. I'll take that as a yes. Meet me here tomorrow after class to tell them your final response. Remember, your parents are gonna have to agree. See you later. The blonde shouted back after jumping into the trees. All Vlad could think was, of course my parents will agree, I don't have any. Better get home. Today is a lucky day, Hokage's office. After another bout of flirting with Ino, Naruto was back in the Hokage's office, discussing whether or not Naruto could take an apprentice. Bachan, come on. You know I can't teach Fujinjutsu to more than one person at a time, plus I know his clan techniques pretty well, having seen them used then eventually getting them off a scroll and using some of them myself. Plus, at the age he is, I could take him out to Rock Country and get him the familiar. He won't get him anywhere else, you know that, and a team would just keep me off the front longer. These were all valid points of course, but Tsunade was in a bad mood. He'd walked into her office before Ino cleared it for him, and had seen her with her top off, changing at the time since there was a sake stain on that shirt, caused by a wrestling match between her and Shizun for the bottle. Tsunade had won of course, but she accidentally broke the bottle in her hands. And drenched herself. So, wanting to get something out of the deal, she decided to allow it, under conditions. Vladimir Taltos has no parents, no family at all, and I'm pretty sure you know why. I will allow you to take him as your apprentice under one condition, you have to adopt him, and take care of him until he can take care of himself, which he will be able to do when he reaches Chunin. At that point, I suggest you let him leave to have his own life, and with Chunin pay he could do it. Condition accepted. If you give me the apartment number he's in, I'll help him move when he is officially my apprentice. That is acceptable. Just got rid of another big headache of a problem. Good work. Tsunade thought to herself. That night, 10 p.m., Naruto had come home to a lively house. Hinata, Tenten, and Temari were all talking in the living room, waiting for dinner to cook. Soon, it was on the table, as they all exchanged talk about their day, the main focus being that Naruto would be Hokage pretty soon, and that he was only telling them because he knew they wouldn't tell anyone else, and Naruto's soon-to-be apprentice/adopted child. All they could really focus on was, will he be a cute kid? We're gonna have a kid in the house, it'll even out the genders, and, among the girls' whispers, we'll all have to get him before the week ends, else we'll have to wait until the kid moves in and when we have time alone with Naruto, without the kid around. The conversation and dinner soon ended, and Tenten and Temari voluntarily left the house to take care of some things they supposedly had to do, leaving Hinata alone with Naruto. As soon as Tenten and Temari were out the door, Hinata leapt off her chair at Naruto, who was on the couch. Laying on top of him, straddling his legs, Hinata leaned down and captured his lips in a kiss. Moving her tongue along his lower lip, she begged for entrance, which was soon granted. Tongues wrestling for control, the two began to move against each other. Hinata's left hand was situated on his hard right pectoral, her other hand running through his long blonde hair and pulling out his ponytail, allowing it to muss around underneath him. Naruto's left hand found its way underneath the loose white t-shirt she'd been wearing, and began fondling her right breast. His right hand moved its way down her body, eventually settling on her left butt cheek and squeezing it, causing her to let out a squeal. Rubbing both methodically, Hinata began to moan, while her left hand moved down Naruto's body, eventually settling underneath him, allowing her to press herself to him, unfortunately dislodging his hand. Breaking from the kiss, Hinata leaned down and whispered in his ear, "I've been waiting for this for too long. Let's go get washed up." Hinata moved off Naruto, then was surprised when Naruto picked her up bridal style, and carried her up to the master bedroom. Once there, he put her down on the bed, then began stripping. Once he was down to nothing, he noticed Hinata hadn't taken off anything. She was just staring at his member, a full 6.5 inches limp, likely 8 to 9 inches when hard. Naruto blushed, but then decided to play the part. Taking a remote from the nightstand, Naruto turned on some music. The last thing he'd had in there was some soft music, that would have worked for the shower. However, what it played was more like the thumping music of a strip joint. Hinata, as if responding, began to do a striptease. However, it didn't last 30 seconds, as Naruto flipped off the stereo, tore off the rest of Hinata's clothes, and walked her into the shower, where he flipped on the water which was, thankfully, warm. "Hinataheim, I won't have my princess act as a strip dancer. You want to do that, do it sometime else, tonight is special for both of us, and I want us to be as equals here." "Still no reason to rip off my clothes, I liked those pants," Hinata said indignantly. "Yeah well, I like them better when they aren't on you," Naruto said with a grin. The water was cascading off their bodies, shining and giving them an almost angelic glow. Getting a fun idea, Naruto took a washcloth from a rack on the side of the shower, and took an amber soap with lilac scent off the shelf. Scrubbing it a little, the suds began to appear, and Toki was eyeing Hinata carefully. She saw this, and nodded, giving him the okay. Moving up to his goddess, Naruto began to clean Hinata, starting with her back. Massaging her, he began to work his way down. When at her rear, he gave her a squeeze, just to tease her, then continued his way down. Reaching her feet, he massaged them for a short while, before working his way back up. Reaching her thighs, Naruto decided to wash her inner thigh, scrubbing softly, inching his way towards her opening, then moving past it, up her stomach and between her breasts. Scrubbing them softly as well, he made sure she was completely clean, then brought her back into the spray of water. Hinata had just spent the last 10 minutes Naruto had spent cleaning her in absolute heaven. He was kind, gentle, and had soft, though masculine hands which seemed to know exactly how to please her. Getting a similar idea, she proceeded to do the same for him. Getting an amber soap which had a more masculine fragrance, Hinata began to clean him. Working down his back, she massaged him as well, making sure all his joints were loose before continuing down. Reaching his butt, she got an idea and slapped it. Nearly leaping at the sudden pain in one of his butt cheeks, he heard Hinata giggling softly. He soon felt the other one get slapped, and would have glared at her, if she hadn't pressed up behind him, whispering, "Sorry," into his ear. He was still slightly miffed, but that feeling went away by the time Hinata made her way down the back and up the front again. Reaching his member, Hinata gave it a kiss, then continued upwards. Soon, they were both clean, except for their hair. Hinata took some strawberry-scented shampoo, and used that whereas Naruto opted for a non-scented shampoo. Turning off the shower, they went into separate parts of the bathroom where they dried themselves, and got dressed. Naruto put on a pair of boxers, and left his hair hanging behind himself, then got onto the bed. This is when Hinata started to take control of the show. Dimming the lights, she came out in a purple lace teddy, see-through except for around her breasts, and purple panties with a black lace trimming. Her secret weapon, or so she called it. Swaying her hips from side to side, she watched Naruto become entranced, mentally yelling, "He's mine now. Lemon starts here." Reaching the bed, Hinata got onto him again. Purring, she straddled his legs once again, and they began to kiss. His hand traveled down her body, while she pressed herself to him, preventing him from reaching her breasts. One hand on her back, the other on her rear, Naruto began to squeeze it. It was firm, of course, she was a kunoichi, and the react that he got from her was well worth doing so. She began to main into his mouth as they locked lips, the sounds growing louder until she squealed, which is when Naruto realized he'd squeezed too hard. Letting go, Hinata propped herself up, allowing him to reach for her breasts. They were easily cups, large and with pink tits. Naruto moved her forward with his right hand, then moved his head down, sucking on her right one while fondling her left. Catching her left tit between his thumb and finger, he twisted it slightly, yielding still louder moans. Taking her teddy off completely, Naruto threw it across the room. With the obstacle removed, he began to suck on her nipple more fervently, yielding still louder moans from Hinata. Her breathing got heavier, and soon she was submissive enough for Naruto to flip her over. Pinning her down, Naruto rested himself on top, and continued to suck until Hinata whispered to him more. Teasingly bring his right hand ever so slowly down her body, he began to draw circles with his fingers around her navel, before resting his hand just above her panties. Taking her other breast into his free hand once again, Naruto inched his forefinger into her panties, and drew them downwards. Soon, Naruto was lying next to Hinata, holding them teasingly in his hand. Throwing the pair of panties across the room to join its set, Naruto began to move his head down Hinata's body, well, until Hinata decided to turn the tables. Flipping up quickly, Hinata dragged Naruto back onto the bed. She whispered to him, "Time for me to make you feel good." Naruto just responded with, "Can't wait," and laid down as she told him to. Reaching her fingers into his boxers, Hinata brushed his member, then pulled down slowly, eventually removing his boxers so that he lay before her nude. Moving up, she kissed him, then crawled down his body to his member. Taking it into her hands, she rubbed it slowly, up and down, methodically, rhythmically, and he began moaning. Moving faster, she began to apply a little more pressure, his member becoming fully erect. Deciding that she'd had enough fun with just her hands, Hinata told Naruto to close his eyes. Complying, though wondering what she could be up to, Naruto closed his eyes. He felt something warm close around his penis, then moved slowly downwards, enveloping more and more of him. He felt something swishing around his penis, and a sucking power on it that just made him moan louder. Opening his eyes, he saw she had him all the way into her mouth, and into her throat. Moaning still louder, he managed to call out Hinata a few times. She increased her pace from the incredibly slow rate she'd been staying at, moving him in and out, faster and faster. When she could feel him throbbing, about to release, she put her mouth over only the tip, making sure she got all of it in her mouth. Well, that's what she'd planned. Instead, Naruto grasped her head, and pushed her down a little. "I'm coming!" Naruto shouted, loud enough for anyone in the house to hear. Fortunately, there was no one else in the house. As it came out, Hinata swallowed it all. It was thick, and sweet, though a little bitter. "Naruto. Thank you," Hinata said, happy to have gotten so much out of him. "Hinata, you're not the only one who waited 5 years for this." Naruto grasped her hands, and pulled her up to sit on top of him. Kissing her, he gently flipped her under him, and began planting butterfly kisses on her, trailing his way down to her entrance. Once there, he looked up at her mischievously. Then, spreading her legs, Naruto used his left hand to hold her steady, then inserted a finger of his right hand slowly into her pussy. He could hear Hinata moan as its entrance, and purr. Moving it around, he soon found that little mound of supersensitive flesh, her clit. Rubbing it softly, Hinata suddenly screamed in pleasure. He soon inserted a second finger, and instead of her clit, he simply began to pump. Her juices were already flowing out of her, soaking his fingers. As she began to move her hips against him, he decided to bring it up to the next level. Leaning down, Naruto pressed his lips to her pussy, then inserted his tongue. Licking her clit, and moving around inside, he began to hum. The vibrations shook her to the core. Her breathing became heavier, and her moans were coming every time she tried to speak. Continuing, Naruto found her soon at her limit, nibbling her clit. She gasped then screamed, "Naruto!" as she had her first orgasm of the night. Lapping up her juices, Naruto moved his way up her body again, and kissed her, letting some of her own juices flow into her mouth. He whispered to her, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Hinata was unable to speak for a few moments but soon caught her breath. "I love you, Naruto, I want you, all of you. I love you too, Hinata. I always will," Naruto said. Back, with a smile. At this, Naruto began rubbing his member against her pussy, not sticking it in, just getting her juices flowing again. Once she was sufficiently wet, Naruto flipped her over. "This should be easier for you." Hinata nodded her agreement, and began lowering herself onto him. He leaned upwards, and she leaned down so that she was on the head of his dick, but also with her head next to his, her teeth in his shoulder as he was basically splitting her apart. Naruto just began whispering comforting words in her ears, as she lowered herself onto him. When she split, her virginity gone, she would have cried out in pain, had she not been biting down on Naruto. Needless to say, she was biting down pretty hard, hard enough for him to wince, but she was soon used to it and let go. Naruto took her into a kiss, as he began to pump in and out of her. He started out slow, using the whole length, but then began to pump faster. Not intent on causing himself pain, he never took his dick all the way out, but simply kept pumping. They continued, faster and faster as her pussy tightened around him, sucking him in rather than pushing him out. "Hinata. Your pussy. It's so good. Naruto, I need your dick, I need it inside me, always. Please, keep fucking me, fuck me harder." Hinata yelled, bucking her hips against him and increasing the pace. Naruto quickly caught up, and soon he began to feel himself rising, he could feel it. Hinata felt his dick throbbing within her, and she was desperate for his cum, desperate. She latched onto his lips, hoping it would encourage him to go faster. Meanwhile, Naruto brought his hands up to her breasts while he increased his speed, and the slapping of skin on skin became audible. They moaned into each other's mouths, louder with each movement, until Hinata began to climax. The heat, the heavy breathing, his penis so deep into her, all at once, and she cried, "I'm coming," and her fluid burst forth, the dams breaking as she had the largest orgasm she thought was possible. Seconds later he came as well, his hot semen mixing with her cum, his load giving her the best feeling in the world, as he was filled up inside. They both collapsed, laying next to each other, breathing heavily. Hinata-kun. That was amazing. Naruto-kun. I need more. Naruto, never one to deny someone he loves, though inexperienced, decided to try something he'd seen the Inuzukas doing once, when he passed innocently by a window late at night. Positioning Hinata on her hands and knees, Naruto bent over her, and grabbed her breasts. Fondling them, he felt himself getting harder until he was once again fully erect. However, Hinata had been dreaming about this for a long time, and was nothing if not creative. Seeing the position, she knew what he was going to do, and propped her as farther up into the air, so that he could reach it easily. Feeling his dick slide into her again, she moaned loudly. Naruto. More. Taking control, Naruto decided that no, he wouldn't give her more, at least, not until he punished her for trying to order him. Walking around to the side of her, he slid his legs under her, then put her over his knees. Before she could ask what he was doing, he began to spank her. Naughty Hinata, you should know better than to try to order around stronger shinobi. Alternating cheeks, Naruto continued to spank her, building up speed and strength behind the blows, but instead of the anger he'd expected, she was moaning in pleasure and in pain. Seeing her enjoying it, he decided to whisper to her, Hinata-kun is a naughty girl, isn't she? Yes. Naruto-kun. I didn't hear you. Hinata-kun is a naughty girl, and what happens to naughty girls? Naughty girls are punished. Hinata was now writhing in pleasure, and Naruto was slowing down, slowing her. Torture, Hinata, if you're a bad girl again, I'll be forced to punish you. Hinata just moaned, then said, punish me, punish me. Taking his hand back, Naruto altered the heat of his hand a little so that it was hotter than normal, and after several more slaps, Hinata's butt was beet red, and she was crying in pleasure and pain. Deciding she'd had enough, Naruto picked her up, and decided to try something different. Pressing his dick into her pussy in a quick jolt, Hinata let out another scream of pleasure, as Naruto brought her back up against a wall. Holding her up, he began to pump into her, harder and faster. Her hands were wrapped around his neck, and she was moaning into his chest. Naruto-kun, 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 she repeated with every thrust, getting louder and harder to understand as she began to half moan, half scream his name. Feeling her pussy tightening around him again, he knew she was nearing her limit. Pulling all the way out, then thrusting in, he felt her come, and heard her scream again as she released another wave of juices. However, Naruto had not come yet. Seeing as how she likes it rough, why not give it to her rough? Throwing her to the floor again, she got down on her hands and knees, and happily rose her butt into the air again. Naruto, not one to delay something like this, leaned over and pushed all the way in again. Reaching over her, he grabbed onto her firm breasts as he began pumping into her. Her amber skin smelled of strawberries, lilacs, sex, and sweat. Her hair trailed down her back still, and taking in the intoxication scent, Naruto increased his speed again. The slapping of skin on skin, moans, grunts, gasps, and soon a yell and scream followed. Unleashing his third load into Hinata's pussy, Hinata came at the same time, filling her up for the second time that night. Both of them, sweating, smelling of sex, were tired from the exertion of each of their first times, but neither wanted to give up the feeling. Hinata crawled over to Naruto, who was lying on the floor face up, and crouched over his face. Leaning up, he soon began lapping up her juices again, himself soon becoming erect. As soon as he was, Hinata moved over to him and lowered herself onto his 9-inch-long member. She felt it splitting her once again as she took in his full length, then began bouncing up and down. Her breasts bounced to the rhythm, up and down every second as their rate increased. Naruto began forcing himself upwards as she moved herself down, and soon, every second, his full length was being engulfed by Hinata's tight pussy clamping around him. Moans growing louder than any of the previous rounds of sex, they soon felt both of themselves reaching their peak. At the same time, they screamed each other's names. Naruto. Hinata. And both came for the last time that night. Exhausted, they climbed into bed, not bothering with clothing, and fell asleep in each other's arms. It was their first night together like that, and damn they enjoyed it. Lemon end, A/N, I have never written a lemon before. Nor have I ever made it that far. So this is basically what I learned from other fanfics. Curiosity, and sext. LOL. Did I do well? Next morning, Hinata got up awkwardly that morning, to find herself in a sleeping Naruto's arms. Not wanting to leave his warmth, she waited there for a few minutes before he woke up as well. The light coming in from the window seemed to light up his golden hair, and made his eyes sparkle. Along with the chirping of birds, it made a very peaceful morning. It was nearly noon, they'd slept for 12 whole hours. On the table was breakfast for both of them, as well as a pink piece of paper. Reluctantly removing herself from Naruto's arms, she got up and walked, buck naked, over to the table. Picking up the note, she saw it was addressed to her, and in a jumble of words essentially said, "When you get this, take your time but meet us at the tea shop. We want details." Tenten and Temari. Naruto, yawning, got up and walked over. Seeing the paper, he asked what it was, but Hinata just said it was for her. Letting it drop, Naruto suggested they eat, and she agreed to do so, but after a quick shower. They were both naked, neither particularly worried about it, and in some kind of silent agreement promised they would talk about what happened last night sometime later. Like with the punishing part. Eating breakfast while Hinata showered, Naruto realized he didn't really have much he had to do that day, so he decided he would go meet with some friends before seeing Vlad and coming back to meet with his fiancés, who were sure to have wedding plans, if what Hinata said to herself in the shower when she thought no one was listening was true. Finishing breakfast, he went off to shower, only to have Hinata walk out. With a mischievous smile, he walked past her, and gave her a light slap on the butt, which Naruto saw was already healed. Probably by some kind of medical jutsu that Hinata knew, since no medical cream worked that fast. She jumped slightly, but then did the same to him, just before he closed the door so that he couldn't retaliate. Grumbling, Naruto made it to the shower, did so, then stepped out to find Hinata fully dressed. With a camera. Taking a picture of Naruto, without even a towel and not covering anything out of shock, Hinata simply giggled. The Polaroid came out of the camera, and she just said with conviction, "Evidence." Naruto sighed. It was true he had nothing to be ashamed of, but he didn't want a picture like that being thrown around. Just make sure no one sees that but Temari and Tenten, okay? I don't want to be targeted by more women. Hinata giggled. Okay, Naruto-kun. I wouldn't want to be a bad girl, now would I? And with that, she walked out of the room, albeit awkwardly, and whether she swayed her hips on purpose or not was up for debate, but Naruto didn't care, he just watched. From outside the door, Hinata called back in a playful tone, "I opened the window to the street once I was done getting dressed. If I were you I'd either close it or get a towel like a normal person." Naruto turned, and saw that there was indeed a window to the street which could easily be seen through. Deciding Hinata was right, he grabbed a towel from the bathroom and put it on. Unfortunately, one woman, a kunoichi, had seen and was rather interested. I mean, his member was clearly visible from the street. It had to be big. Naruto, after getting dressed and strapping 2 of his 3 combat belts, leaving the third one behind, looked basically the same as yesterday, except today he let his hair hang down, and wore a black t-shirt with the kanji 4 seal in white just below the collar on the right side. Leaving his house with his equipment again, he remembered his chain on the first try, and made his way out into the street. He decided he had to see how well some of his friends had progressed, and since he'd already seen Ino, he decided to go see Shikamaru and Chuji. Arriving at the Barabek place that Chuji had always loved, he found him there, with Shikamaru scarfing down food. He'd heard from Jiraiya once that Asuma had died on a mission against a powerful organization known as Akatsuki, and that the organization had gone underground after that, for reasons still unknown. Deciding not to bring up the subject, having remembered the man was dead, Naruto just sat down with them, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Leaning his sword against the table, he sat down next to Shikamaru, and said, in a friendly way, "Hey guys." The two looked at him, wondering who exactly he was. Shikamaru got it first, as expected. "Hey Naruto, you look different. Are those seal belts?" "Yeah, they were hard to make too. I had to make a few and sell them to a few people on the brief days I spent outside my training zone, and in the months around Rock Country." "Why, have you heard of them?" "Yeah, I was told a ninja in Rock Country was making them, and to be on high alert seeing them. I'm just gonna guess that most everyone is not." "Surprised you're the one that made them, huh?" "I guess not. So what do you know about these things?" Naruto inquired. "Not much, just what they told us. Only 3 people own one, those 3 people being you, Jiraiya, and someone else in Rock Country." Shikamaru responded, indifferently. "Well, you're actually wrong now. I got them all back about a week ago. Jiraiya sent me his, and the one I gave Daikasa I retrieved right before I began the operation I was working on. I don't intend to make any more if they aren't necessary. The 3rd one is at my home." "So, how'd the village been?" "Getting steadily worse. Our economy has gone down as the daimyo is cutting off some support." "Yeah, but you're the lead strategist, you have to prepare for this sort of stuff, don't you?" Chuji finally chimed in. "You're the lead strategist, eh? Well, they'll probably put me in charge of a squad somewhere if it comes down to it, so make sure you do your job well. I may be possibly the best shinobi alive at full power, but enough people can take down even the strongest," Naruto said, boasting, but without altering his voice. Same old Naruto. "So I hear you're taking an apprentice, huh?" Chuji asked. "How'd you know about that?" Chuji looked smug for a moment before answering. "I'm the other teacher at the academy. I am a jounin, but I switch off with another, alternating morning and afternoon with Kurenai, since she can't go on missions with that baby around." "Man, a lot has changed," Naruto said, emphasis on the has. "Yeah," Chuji continued. "Vlad is in my class. I was there this morning, and he was talking about how Namikaze Naruto was gonna train him. The other kids called him liars, but I couldn't do anything, I didn't know if it was true. You should come swing by the class. If they see it's real deal, maybe they'll lay off. I'd appreciate it." Naruto was eyeing Chuji carefully, remembering what Vlad had said the previous day. "Chuji, do you favor any kids over others?" Chuji knew this question was coming, and he wasn't proud of what he was doing, but the Hokage had requested it. "Yes, Naruto, I do. We are to get as many children to Chunin rank as possible, so that if war comes, we'll have more skilled shinobi. We are ordered to focus on their strengths, not their all-around balance, and kids that show no talent are left behind. I'm not proud that we are doing it that way, but that's what we must do. We also upped the difficulty of the exams, so even the least skilled of graduated has a fighting chance before they become Chunin. We followed orders, okay?" Surprisingly, Naruto listened to that. It really was the best strategy, even if he didn't like it, and it was the best way of getting more powerful troops. "Chuji, what is the exam now?" "1 solid type bunshin, 1 ninjutsu and genjutsu outside the basics, and a taijutsu style completed that isn't in the academy." There have been many chances for all kids to go to classes to learn these styles outside the academy, from clans or other ninja around, but for some reason Vlad never went. He always fights with his sword. I'll tell you what, I'll count his kenjutsu as another taijutsu style outside basic if you want, but if you want him to pass, you got your work cut out for you. Chuji, he will learn another style, and all that is needed. I guarantee you, in the 5 days I have him, he'll pass just like the others, like normal. The confidence in Naruto's words is what made it believable, and soon they were heading for the academy. Lunch had just ended, and the kids in the classroom were making a ruckus, well, until Chuji walked in. He said, in a tiny voice, quiet, and the room was dead silent. Naruto simply admired how well he'd disciplined them. Naruto stood beside Chuji, his presence obvious. Chuji gave him the okay, and Naruto addressed the room. Vladimir Taltos? The boy was seated in the far back. His sword was indeed at his side, a rapier from the looks of it. In a voice seemingly too big for what his mouth should have been able to produce, he yelled, "Here!" Naruto saw shocked looks of students around the room, likely the kids who made fun of him for lying. "Vlad, come with me, we have a lot to do." The boy got up from his seat. Grabbing his stuff, he followed Naruto out of the room and to the training ground outside. Once out there, Naruto sat him down, and sat in a squat across from him. "Vlad, what do you know about your family?" "Nothing," the boy replied, surprised by the interest. "Really? Would you like to know about them?" The boy nodded yes, not trusting his mouth. The Taltos was a clan of the Rock Country. Not all that long ago, a few years at most, it was wiped out either by people expecting the coming war, or people who feared their power, or bloodline. My best guess is you were dumped near Konoha to grow up here because someone predicted the coming executions. Your family was extremely powerful, being great earthjutsu users, and they each had a connection with dragons since they were young. When you turn 12, I will take you to where you can get yours. In case you're wondering how I know, it's because some of them were attempting to attack Konoha. I have never killed any of them, only disabled, because killing them would be very difficult. To kill a Taltos, you had to slay them and their dragon, and once they were adults this was near impossible for anyone below Jounin level. I got some of their jutsus, and learned their ritual, but that's all I know. What I need you to focus on for the next week is getting ready for the exam. I will help all that I can, is this all right? Absorbing all the information, the boy nearly fainted, but regained control shortly. Yes. Then let's begin. Vlad, for the first exercise, I want you to fight me. I need to see your strengths and weakness, before I can tell you what to start on first. Now, you better come at me with intent to kill, else you will do nothing. The boy nodded, and drew his rapier. Going into a stance similar to basic fencing, but with a few modifications, he began a fluid dance of attacks. Lunging at Naruto, he found his strike parried by a kunai, and had 2 shuriken flying at him. Blocking both with surprising ease, the boy moved in again, only showing his side to Naruto, and taking out a kunai in his back hand. Moving forward again, his feet blurred, as he was quickly in front of Naruto. Spinning himself, Vlad attacked with the kunai, aiming for Naruto's left hip, only to have it parried. Continuing his spin, he struck with his rapier, kunai, rapier, and then kunai again, all attacks blocked before jumping back, panting. Well, your kenjutsu doesn't need much work, at least for now. Come at me, no weapons. Nodding again, Vlad sheathed his rapier, then got into a flawed basic academy stance. Kid, do you know any other stances? Naruto asked, sweat dropping at the boy's poor stance. No. Vlad said, disappointedly. Alright, Naruto sighed. Soon, the boy was charging at him, and Naruto quickly slid his foot under him, tripping him so that he fell down before he could even get in range of the blonde. Know any jutsus? Naruto asked, hopeful that he at least knew something. Once again, Vlad shook his head signifying that he did not. Okay, Vlad, this is gonna take a lot of work. I only know of one way to get you up to Genin level in 5 days, and it means that neither of us will be sleeping for the next 4. First, take off all your clothes except your boxers. Vlad was a bit uneasy, but did as his teacher asked, well, until he heard the flash of a camera. He turned and saw Naruto holding a Polaroid, and yelled the first thing which came to mind. What are you doing? Getting blackmail, what does it look like? Now, if you don't work your hardest for the next 4 days, I'm going to show this to every single girl in your class, and all the other classes, got it? Vlad simply grumbled out a yes, then sat down in his boxers. Naruto, seeing the boy's compliance, even if it wasn't entirely necessary, began walking around him, projecting various seals onto his body. After a good half an hour, and telling Vlad not to move several times, Naruto finished the seal and said quickly. Sorry, but this is gonna hurt. A lot. Fuin, power infusion no jutsu. Suddenly, all the seals on the boy's body began congregating themselves into a large spiral-like shape in the middle of the boy's chest, just below his pecs. They were glowing gold, lighting up the field, as Vlad screamed in agony. It felt as if a new chakra was forcefully merging with his own, in a temporary bond so that it was pulling on his own. Soon, the seal was completed and the power was sealed into him, and all Vlad could think was, wow. So much power. I won't explain the details, but I basically gave you just enough chakra to survive this next week. To start, get your clothes back on, go home, get some changes of clothes, and meet me at training field 8. It will be ours for now. Later, they met at the training ground, Vlad carrying a large array of clothing, enough for 4 days and nights, including pajamas. Which he'd never use. Training Ground 8 was basically just a big round field of trees with a river flowing through the middle, relatively safe for any genin, assuming they could swim. Heh, well, you won't be sleeping so you won't be needing those, Naruto said, pointing to the pajamas and burning them with a fire-stirring seal which was promptly released. Vlad looked upset, but covered it up. He didn't want any more seals like the one from before. Now, the first thing I am going to be teaching you is Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. It will be key to your training, but once you learn it, you can't use it without my approval. Got it? Yes, but Naruto-sensei, I couldn't even do the normal Bunshin, shouldn't I be working on that first? You will, when you have the skill too. Don't worry, as long as there is chakra available, this technique isn't all that hard. First, I'm gonna show you how to use the merged chakra you'll need, then I'll teach you it. A few hours later, Naruto and Vlad were sitting in a small clearing by the river, having just finished their ration bars. Turning to the boy, really analyzing him for the first time, Naruto saw that he really shouldn't have been so weak. He was about 4 feet tall, a pretty strong build, with wide shoulders and long legs. He had a somewhat angular face, perhaps having to do with some kind of family history, and medium-length dark brown hair, put in a ponytail reaching just beneath his shoulders. Unlike Naruto's hair, it looked naturally smooth. The boy was wearing a black cloak with a clasp in the shape of a dragon, which looked ancient, at least a few years old. Underneath that he wore a brown tunic. His pants looked to be standard issue black for ninjas, which was uncommon for children to have, but Naruto brushed that off. Vlad also had a pair of black combat boots. What was most unusual about him though was he didn't use normal kunai, or at least, usually didn't. He only had one, but other than that he had a variety of knives, including a pair of stiletto tips fitted into his boots, and 2 wide-blade daggers seemed best fit for slitting throats. He also had various others hidden around his person, and if he walked into just about any town, he could probably slip a big enough arsenal for several ninja without anyone ever knowing. It was at this point where Vlad cleared his throat to get Naruto's attention. You done? Naruto asked, as if pretending he hadn't been staring. Yeah. I still don't understand. I can make a few clones now, and they're solid, but what does that matter? I mean, I'm grateful, but how does that help me train better like you said? The boy, surprisingly polite for his age, soon got his answer. Vlad, when a Kage Bunshin is released, it transfers any knowledge it gains back to its owner. Essentially, it's like speed learning. What you can learn in one day can be learned in half a day by 2 clones, as long as it isn't physical strengthening. The boy looked confused for a moment, then a wide grin spread across his face. So that's how the other kids got so good. No, normal or even elemental clones cannot do this. The Kage Bunshin is a forbidden technique, as it splits your chakra. If you make too many clones, you can die from it, and thus, forbidden. Still, it is great for learning. Now, watch me, this is what you'll be learning first. Naruto walked over to a tree, then focused chakra to his feet, and walked straight up the tree. Once standing upside down, he looked at Vlad and, remembering the higher standards, simply asked. Have you done this before? Yes. But I was never able to get more than 10 feet high, at most before I ran out of chakra. Okay, well, go make 9 clones, and start that exercise. Come get me when you're done, I'll be right here. Vlad, of course, was shocked by his tutor's apparent lack of interest, but didn't bring it up. After all, he'd just given him a load of power, and a new technique. Making 9 clones, Vlad started them running up the tree, and within a few hours was at the top. Having remade the clones every time he made a substantial improvement, Vlad was tired, but he'd done it. Panting heavily, he dropped down and tapped a meditating Naruto on the shoulder. Naruto looked up, and grinned. Done already, huh? Well, I'd say you have a pretty good grasp on control now. So, there are 4 more things you need to learn to become Genin, are you ready? Actually, your answer doesn't matter, you're doing it anyway. Come on. Naruto led Vlad over to the water, and began to walk on it, expelling a flow of chakra into the water so that he could walk on it. Well, this is your next exercise. If you complete this, I'll give you the last technique on control, then teach you what you'll need to know for the exam. For this exercise, you must expel a flow of chakra at varying levels of power in order to remain standing. Now, get some clones, and get to work. With that, Naruto went back to meditating, while Vlad struggled. How does he expect me to get this so quickly? I know this is Chunin level control, so why is he having me learn it? Oh well. He seems to know what he's doing, and the sooner I get started the sooner I get to pass. I just hope Grandpa is okay with me learning other things. Even if I haven't perfected my rapier style. Grandpa, wherever you are, please forgive me. Having each clone focus chakra to its feet, all 9 managed a little progress before they sank. By the time all the clones had a chance, Vlad had seen a little of what was required, and began his output of chakra. Releasing all the clones, he felt the knowledge rush to his head, and suddenly knew how to do so better. After 8 more hours of training on the technique, Vlad was finally able to walk and run on the water, of course still using the merged chakra. About to fall asleep, he was tapped on the shoulder by a green tail emanating from Naruto, one of 5.5. The tail motioned for him to come close, and soon he was sitting before Naruto, cross-legged. Close your eyes. Naruto spoke in a voice that didn't seem like his own. It was deeper, with almost a malicious aura to it. The last exercise is meditation. You must bring your chakra, yours only, to your core and expel the merged chakra. Do so from each individual tenketsu for about a minute, and then it will run out. Once you think you are done, I will remove the seal. If it is not completely gone, the tainted chakra will damage your system, so make sure to do a good job of it. 10 hours later, Vlad signaled Naruto, who now had a full 6 green tails swirling around behind him. Naruto leaned over, and opened his eyes to reveal his 14 seal's eye. Removing the seal from Vlad's chest, him having removed his outer clothing to allow access, Vlad felt no pain, then promptly passed out, as he had almost no chakra left to support himself. One day later, Naruto had been meditating constantly, but couldn't begin the seventh tale. Allowing each to recede back into himself, Naruto got up. Eating a ration bar, he shook Vlad awake. When getting him up, Naruto analyzed the boy's reserves and saw that they were both filling much quicker, and that they were larger due to the strain of the merged chakra. "It's been a day, get up lazy bones," Naruto said in a bored tone. After waiting another 5 minutes, he spoke again. "If you aren't up in the next 5 seconds, I'm gonna seal your ass into a scroll." Not one to push his luck, Vlad hopped out of his sleeping bag and got dressed. Minutes later, he noticed how much stronger he felt. "Vlad, today is the day we start on your techniques. We only have 2 days left until the exam, so you better work hard. First, make 3 clones. You'll find this to be much more taxing on your chakra, now that you don't have mine, but your reserves and rate of recovery have increased, so 3 shouldn't be too hard. Send 1 off with mine each, with 25 of your chakra each." With that, Naruto made 3 Kage Bunshin of his own and sent them off to train with Vlad's. "Each of them will teach one of your clones a technique, while you learn taijutsu from me. I'll show you a basic style, but it is still better than the academies. Once you're officially my apprentice, I'll show you something better. Now, we'll do this again tomorrow. Work your ass off or you'll never pass." With clone number 1, the clone of Vlad was looking around confusedly. Naruto had just performed a jutsu, but did so without seals. A seal appeared on the ground, then exploded, without Naruto ever seeming to move. All that happened was one of the kanji for seal in his left eye lit up. "How did you do that?" Vlad asked, wondering how exactly the seal had appeared. "My bloodline, but that's not important. Yet. For now, I am going to teach you a defensive fire jutsu. It only requires 2 seals, and is really easy to use. You saw that explosion? Well, what this jutsu does, in its most basic form, is create an outward explosion of fire that lasts a second or 2, the force of which should deflect kunai or scorch any nearby enemies. The key to this technique is to use it just before an attack is going to hit you. Now, I use this technique with written seals, which though different from hand seals, are not so different in concept. The seals for this jutsu are ram, tiger." The Naruto clone slowly went through the seals, making sure Vlad got them, then continued. "Now, throw a kunai at me." "But, sensei? You'd know, I won't get hurt. I am going to demonstrate the jutsu." "Okay sensei." The Vlad clone threw a kunai at Naruto. The Naruto clone sighed, even his clones are nervous, at least he can use those shuriken pretty well, even if they are uncommon. Unlike normal Konoha shuriken, these shuriken had tiny fin-like blades coming out of them. With a flick of the wrist, they were tearing through the air at Naruto. Just as they were about to hit, the Naruto clone said, "Katan, blast deflection no jutsu," and a small explosion blew away the shuriken, leaving the tips of them a little black. "Now, you try." The Vlad clone went through the 2 seals, holding up his hand and saying, "Katan, blast deflection no jutsu." A tiny spark emerged from his hand, much to his disappointment, and the Naruto clone simply said, "This is gonna be a lot of work." With clone number 2, "Now, Vlad, do you know what a genjutsu is?" The Vlad clone looked like it was about to respond, but then thought better of it. "Not really, no." The clone smiled at Vlad's more thoughtful approach, willing to admit he didn't know. Humility. Uncommon in many ninja. A genjutsu is a technique used to fool an enemy's senses by putting your chakra into their system and adjusting it. You can fool any of the 6 senses of ninja: touch, smell, sight, taste, hearing, and chakra recognition. The clone paused when Vlad raised his hand to ask something. Sighing, the clone decided to nip this habit in the bud. Vlad, this isn't the academy. Respect me, but just ask if you need something. Okay. What is chakra recognition? Chakra recognition is the ability of ninja to sense large amounts of chakra, or the chakra of a particular person, which allows ninjas to find targets even without these other senses. Now, there are two main ways to dispel a genjutsu: either hit yourself to snap out of it, or pulse your chakra to disturb the flow. Let's see which you're better at. Suddenly, Vlad was no longer in the training ground clearing, he was in a giant cage, slowly closing in on him. Knowing it couldn't be real, even if it was scary, Vlad tried to cancel it. Finding he couldn't coordinate himself well, he pulsed his chakra. It was a small, controlled burst, but it did the trick. Kai. Vlad was back to normal again, and the Naruto clone, looking impressed at the young boy, said, "Well, that's how you'll go about doing it. That genjutsu I call prisoner no jutsu, and should work well as a beginning genjutsu. Now, here are the seals," Naruto said, performing them as he spoke. Bird, rat, monkey, dog, ram. Vlad's clone repeated the hand seals several times, getting a feel for it. He knew that as a genjutsu, his chakra would have to flow, so he began the technique. Flashing though the seals in 2 seconds, Vlad whispered, "Prisoner no jutsu." Letting the chakra go to Naruto's clone in a flow, the clone soon found itself trapped inside the world. He was greatly impressed that the boy had managed to learn the genjutsu so easily, even if it was a genin-level technique. Sure, there were a few imperfections, but for the most part it was functional. Creating a clone, then a burst of chakra, the first clone that had been there dispelled itself from the flow, dispelling itself in the process, while the new clone began helping Vlad master the technique. With clone number 3, taking an authoritative stance, the Naruto clone began his lecture. Now, you can't learn much physical as just a clone. However, you can learn form. I will be working with you on one taijutsu style, while the real you and me work on another. That way, you'll get twice the training, and I'm sorry to say it, but you really need to work on your form. I am going to be showing you the start of your clan's taijutsu style, as I've already learned most of it, while the real you and Naruto work on physical strength. Now, copy my form. The Naruto clone got into a position, which actually looked quite ridiculous at first glance. He was standing with his left foot forward on its heel, toes slightly off the ground. His feet were spread apart a little more than shoulder length, his right foot behind his left and perpendicular to his left, which faced straight forward. Bending his knees, Naruto then put his arms in place. His left arm crossed in front of his chest, like he was about to throw a frisbee backhanded, while his right was behind him. It looked as if he was about to spin around like a child. Vlad got into the position clumsily next to Naruto, but after an hour his starting form was close enough to begin the katas. Naruto, leading him through the katas, was happy at the surprised but content look on Vlad's face. Wonder what he's thinking? Vlad was having the time of his life. He'd always liked spin kicks in his taijutsu style, and was good at using them, so this style could have been built for him. The only attacks were kicks and a few stirks with the hands meant to take the opponent off balance. Most of the time, however, the katas had blocks being performed by the hands, attacks by the kicks, and Vlad was just plain happy. Finally I get to use a taijutsu style that won't require too much upper body strength I just don't have. They continued the katas, the Naruto clone correcting the boy's form as he tired to master the more advanced steps. Once you get this kid learning, he isn't too bad, the Naruto clone whispered to himself. With the real Naruto, now, the clones are working on ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. In the meantime, you and I are going to work on your body strength. For the next 2 days, you will only run and keep running. Every time you break a bone or damage a muscle, I will heal it quickly so you'll become stronger. You'll be exhausted by the end, but at least twice as strong as you are now, in with your legs at least. Applying weight seals to the boy's ankles, Naruto added 10 pounds to each leg, and began chasing Vlad around the field, stopping every few minutes to heal the boy. Vlad was in pure agony. All this for one stupid lousy fucking test, and the pain doesn't stop. He can heal it as much as he wants, the pain doesn't go away. Father, I thank you for my pain threshold, first time I'm ever glad I was beaten. Ah shit, he's catching up. Vlad just began to run faster. 2 days later, at the academy, the exam to see who would pass was nearly over. 26 had passed so far, and the last on the list hadn't arrived yet. Just as Chuji was about to release the class, and let them go home, Vlad burst through the door. His clothes were slightly tattered, and his hair was a mess. Sorry, sensei. I woke up late. I'm okay though, right? For the exam? Chuji smiled, he could tell the boy had gotten stronger. Yeah, just on time. Come to the front, and we can start. Most of the class was looking at Vlad expectantly. They knew he'd fail, after all, once a loser, always a loser, right? They were all simply waiting for him to fail and be done with it. He didn't belong as a shinobi. Vladimir Taltos, for starters, make a bunshin, do a kawarimi, and do a henge. Vlad did the seals, and in a few seconds, there were 4 bunshin of him in the room, a random student in front of them, and a perfect replica of Naruto where the student had been sitting. The room was mildly awed at the progress he'd made, but this feeling was quickly dismissed by those that had already passed, the 26 of the 55 students. Okay, well done. Now, one ninjutsu not given to you by us. Doing 2 hand seals, Vlad held up his hand, gathering oxygen around it and heating his hands with chakra. Katan, blast deflection no jutsu. The blast was short and controlled, not that large, but it managed to send small breeze around the room, and light it up brightly. Chuji was once again impressed. He'd never even heard of that jutsu before. It was clearly Genin class, but one thing was for sure to Chuji, Naruto must have been a damned good teacher. Very well done. Now, a genjutsu? Vlad smiled, and did 7 hand seals. After the first day, the clone had learned a second genjutsu, finding he had a knack for it. However, this one he invented with the help of Naruto, making the genjutsu visible. Sleep world no jutsu. Chuji was suddenly surrounded by a world of feathers, and he felt himself weakening. The jutsu was not just fooling his sight, but also his smell. Making the ram seal, Chuji said kai and dispelled the technique, though he was confused. How on earth did he use a dual-layer genjutsu as an academy student? How'd we never noticed this talent before? Very well done again. Never seen that done before either. I take it Naruto was a good teacher, huh? Vlad nodded quickly, before he began preparing for his taijutsu test. Deactivating his ankle weight seals, he felt 50 pounds lighter. For good reason. Sensei. Who am I fighting for my test? Well, considering how well you've done so far, I think I'll put you against Shinomura. Vlad paled at that. Shinomura was the all-around #1 genin that year. She was smart, attractive, and had a beautiful voice. She was also deadly, the daughter of 2 ANBU shinobi. Well class, let's go outside. If Vlad's skills have improved as much as I think they must have, then this should be an interesting match. Now, let's go. Chuji said, leading them out of the classroom. Once they reached the small training field, Shinomura got into her stance, her pit dragon style, while Vlad got into his clan stance, which Shinomura was tempted to laugh at but didn't. She'd seen his leg muscles, they were gigantic compared to what they'd been just a week ago. When I call the match, stop. Do not incapacitate your opponent too harshly, it's just a test after all. Now, you can surrender whenever you want. Begin. Shinomura charged forward, low to the ground. She attempted to sweep his legs out from under him, but he jumped over the strike, kicking her in the chin at the same time. She flew back a bit, but landed on her feet. Charging again, she feinted left, then kicked down at his left leg. He dodged, but she twisted herself, spinning and kicking him in the face. Vlad used the momentum of the kick and his arms to do a quick spin past her, kicking her in the back. Before she could hit the ground, Vlad completed a second spin and kicked her stomach, sending her into the air. Jumping, Vlad did a flip and attempted an axe kick, but it was blocked. Flipping again, using Shinomura's arm as leverage, Vlad grabbed her legs, then landed on the ground. Using the momentum of gravity against her, Vlad slid underneath her just before she hit the ground, and kicked up with both feet. Shinomura punched him in the face at the same time, but the air was knocked out of her by his kick. She flew back a few feet, then landed on her ass. Getting up, she rubbed it gently with pain, and raised her hand. "I surrender." Vlad, with a newly forming black eye, and a few bruises, got up and looked at Shinomura. He mouthed, "Thank you," and she blushed, but turned away so he wouldn't see. It was common knowledge among girls that she had a crush on the weaker boy, but she would never admit it. Chuji looked Vlad and Shinomura over, then turned to all of them. "Vlad, you pass. Both of you, go to the infirmary and get checked out. You can come pick up your forehead protectors afterwards. Class dismissed. Come back tomorrow for your team assignments. Those of you that failed, report to room 201 tomorrow for either a remedial class or another shinobi vocation." All of them left, some grumbling, others giving Vlad odd looks, and still others smiling at him, though a bit jealous he'd gotten so good so quickly. Those students just wanted to know how that blonde guy had gotten the previous deadlast so good. Elsewhere, Naruto was strolling along the road, not a care in the world. He knew Vlad would have no problems, so he wasn't concerned about him. Also, he knew Hinata, Tenten, and Tamari's chakra signatures well enough that he could escape them if they came to question where he'd been for so long. Stopping in at Ichiraku's ramen, Naruto ordered a few bowls and began to eat. However, he was soon in conflict. Tamari's signature was coming in this direction, and however much Naruto did not want to be caught, he didn't want to leave his ramen uneaten. Settling for performing a henge and trying to hide his chakra signature, Naruto continued to eat. Tamari soon came into the ramen bar and began to eat Naruto's ramen. Knowing he didn't have a way to change his voice, Naruto couldn't tell her to stop, and soon he was eating as fast as he could to keep his food just that, his. Tamari stopped eating when she saw the man she was next to increase pace, not telling her to stop. Of course, she knew this had to be Naruto. No one else eats 10 bowls of ramen as quickly as this man was, but she decided to toy with him. Using a minor wind manipulation, Tamari flicked her hand, sending a breeze up the back of the man's coat, making him shiver. She continued this, increasing it, until finally the henge was released to reveal a giggling Naruto. "Stop it. Stop it. I can't take it, it's cold and tickly," Naruto said, every other word his voice stopping due to giggles. Tamari stopped, then gave Naruto a sweet smile. "Where have you been?" Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I was just training someone." "My apprentice? You have an apprentice?" Tamari asked, surprised. Anger temporarily forgotten, she looked at him expectantly. "I have to have one, to become Hokage. You must have heard something about it from Hinata." Yeah, but only little things." I thought she was joking. Naruto smiled. "Nope, but it looks like I'm gonna have to get a team. However strong I could make Vlad, I don't think he'd enjoy being just like me, he needs friends too. I talked to Chuji, I'm getting a team, and he'll be on it. I'll still teach his team Fujinjutsu, but I'm beginning to think that I'll have to wait to teach it to anyone. In war, such secrets could change the tide. Speaking of tide, I hear Hinata's came pretty hard, huh?" Naruto was choking for about a minute after that, as he remained the events of that. Night. During this time, Temari was laughing at his discomfort, while a few other patrons looked at them curiously. When Naruto finally regained control of himself, he looked at Temari questioningly. However, the response was not one he'd expected, as he'd expected her to take him then and there. "Oh no, you don't. I'm waiting until our honeymoon before we go past second base. Speaking of which, you have 2 other women waiting at home who all have wedding plans to put into motion, and want your help." "That's right, wedding planning, our revenge." Temari's voice was sweet until the end when she began cackling maniacally. Naruto just let a large sweat drop form behind his head, as he sensed the impending doom. Finishing his ramen, he soon arrived home, only to be attacked by the 3 women, wielding binders of endless decision-making. The next 6 hours of Naruto's life was spent agreeing to whatever the 3 girls wished for their joint wedding, including paying for the whole thing. By the time it was done, all Naruto knew was that he really needed to either retrieve his spine from the closet it had hidden in when he'd arrived at the estate, or he would forever be whipped. Metaphorically retrieving his spine, all of them went to bed, still thinking about the wedding to come. The plans were not done yet, and Naruto's next few days would be hell. Next day, Naruto woke up to a new feeling that felt oddly familiar. Having not really slept much in the past week, he was used to meditating and getting up whenever Vlad needed help. However, after sleeping, Naruto found that he needed to get used to waking up again. He knew not what he'd fallen asleep wearing, but he knew he'd fallen asleep alone. Hinata, her hair a mess, was draped over his body, which was clad only in boxers. She had her left arm over his chest, and was clinging to him for warmth under the covers. Her arm was over another's, but it wasn't Naruto's. Tenten was on his right side, her right arm draped over his chest, but under Hinata's arm, making a cross shape. Her hair was down, and on his chest as her head snuggle in his shoulder. However, they were no alone in the room. Temari was sitting at the low table in the room, 4 bowls of cereal in front of her, one of which had milk in it, and she was eating it. She was also dressed only in her underwear, her black bra neatly covering her breasts, her black thong just barely covering what lay down below. Naruto struggled to not get hard, fearing that if he did, one of the girls shifting on him would get the wrong idea when they awoke. Looking under the blankets, he saw this was a definite possibility, as Hinata was wearing a matching blue and white bra and panty set that looked a little small for her bust, making it peek out a little, and that Tenten was wearing a red teddy similar to that which she'd shown him oh so many years ago in the lingerie store to get his attention. She was also wearing panties, but they were tied at the sides, showing her hips. Naruto could struggle against his manhood no more, and soon a tent formed. Temari looked over, and grinned, a slight blush on her face. "So, bet you can get used to this, huh?" Naruto blushed deep red, and closed his eyes, trying to settle down. However, this is when Tenten woke up. Stretching a little under the blankets, her hand came in contact with a hard cylindrical object. It could have been the hilt of a katana with its size. She grabbed it, feeling it begin to pulse, and gave it a few soft pulls. She heard the moaning of the man she was half on top of, and gave him one more little squeeze before letting go. She whispered in his ear, "Don't worry, we all agree that you wouldn't get any until the honeymoon, and that on that night you'd get all 3 of us, and you'd have to get us all exhausted before you can finish." She smiled evilly at the last part, as she saw him swallow, and a brief tinge of fear crossed his features. Hinata awoke next. She stretched as well, but fortunately did not brush Naruto's member. She leaned over and kissed him on the lips before lifting herself out of bed and over to the table, where she put milk in her cereal and began to eat. Tenten and Naruto soon followed, and began discussing plans for the wedding. Naruto agreed to help with setup and with costs, as long as the girls promised they got everything they wanted to make it perfect. At the same time, he cleverly freed himself from having to help plan it. Soon, they parted ways. With a kiss each to Naruto, the 3 girls set off to arrange the wedding, while Naruto sighed. In 3 hours he'd have to go meet his new team, as apparently the whole apprentice shindig wouldn't be sufficient. Deciding to catch up with a few more people, Naruto set off to find his 2 best friends, Shino and Kiba. In Izuka Estate, Kiba was in the veterinary clinic in the building next to their house. He was working at the table with a new kind of soldier pill which would work especially for animals. The soldier pills used for humans were too powerful in a moment for a dog to handle correctly. Carefully taking some ingredients, he measured out the correct balance, which had taken a year to figure out, and began grinding them up with mortar and pestle. However, he was soon stopped in his work by his dog, Akamaru, who was now about the size of him, maybe larger. He had spiky white fur, with a tinge of silver at the edges, and looked more like an Arctic wolf than what was once a puppy. Akamaru barked, warning Kiba of the coming visitor, and his identity. Walking to the door of the clinic, he opened it and waited for the man in the white coat and black pants to arrive. A pulse of green warned him of the man's presence a moment beforehand as well. Seeing the figure emerge from around the corner of a building, Kiba raised his right hand and called out to him. "Hey Naruto, long time no see." Naruto was slightly confused. This could not be Kiba. Sure, the tattoos were the same, and his hair was still brown, just a little longer in the back, and he had those fierce eyes. Sure, he had a similar coat, now brown instead of gray, with fur around the neck. He had a jounin vest and black t-shirt underneath, and was wearing standard-issue black ninja pants. Yes, he looked grown up, but that was the point. Kiba was 6 feet 5 inches, even taller than Naruto, and had muscles visible under even the coat. And Akamaru, whom Naruto assumed was the dog next to him, was even bigger. However, his scent confirmed it was him, so Naruto just obliged the greeting. "Hey Kiba. What's up?" "A lot, would you like to come in? My sister Hana is making tea in the house, and my mom's out on a mission." "Sounds great. Hey, is that Akamaru?" Akamaru barked in response, and walked up to Naruto. Jumping on him, he pushed the blonde to the ground and licked his face a few times. Naruto was rolling around under the dog, trying to get free from the tickling, but it was to no avail. Soon, the dog let up and got off, and the 3 of them headed inside the main house. Once inside, they sat at the table where Hana brought in the tea. "Oh, and clean up your room before you go back to work on that pill." "Nei-chan, I'm not 12 anymore. I'll get around to it." Taking a slightly more menacing tone, Hana responded. "Sorry, let me rephrase that. Either clean your room before you go back to work, or I'll neuter you." Kiba instinctively reached to shield his groin and nodded his head. Hana merely smiled while she walked off. "So, what did you do for the last 5 years?" Not much. I trained, and trained some more. I got up to the 14th level of my ultimate Dojutsu. Out of 50. However, since I was in the 4th before, this is a decent improvement. Basically each level of the 50 increases the effectiveness, speed, and range of the seal I use. The sloth boss Falavora has the 50th level. It was like getting hit 50 times at once. I learned counter-sealing, how to use ki better, and I'm up to the 6th tail of my power now. Basically, I'm gonna be the next Hokage, well, after I get my team to Chunin. Wow, big improvement. I'd asked for the details, but something tells me that would take too damn long. Plus, it looks like you've explained that a few times, considering the look on your face. Yeah. 3 times at least, 1 in writing. It was a freaking book by the end. Heh, same old Naruto. Well, I heard about the team stuff from Chuji. Sounds like they're giving you that kid you trained a week, so good luck with that. Just, in a few years when you're Hokage, give me some good missions. Heh, will do. So, what have you been up to? Not much either. I've been training a lot, and going on missions. I spent a year in ANBU, and I've been working on medical and enhancement jutsus and drugs. Done a lot of B, A, and a few shranks. We're still sort of a team, Shino, Hinata, and I, but not so much anymore. Sounds good. You'll have to show me those jutsu. Sometime. I'll show you a beast armor technique I picked up from some rock ninjas once. Oh, that reminds me, what part do you play in all of this? Naruto was, of course, referring to the coming war. Kiba, getting a darker look, waited a moment before responding. I am going to be a commander on the front lines. That's where they need me most. I can do medical stuff, I'm a leader, I can enhance ninjas, and I'm a special jounin myself. So that's where I'll be. You don't sound very thrilled, Naruto said, stating the obvious. Well, I'm not. I don't like war. I know they are necessary for the existence of villages, but that's not a reason to get into war, and the Rock Country doesn't really have much against us, well, other than the most recent incident with their Kage being killed. Old bastard. Oh, that was my fault. I got the order, and I snuck in and killed him. Don't tell anyone though, I'm only telling you because I trust you. Well, thanks for the trust then. They continued to talk with each other, boasting slightly of their tales training or in combat, and after an hour or so Naruto got up and said. Well, good to see you Kiba. Make sure you come to my wedding, bring your sister too. I gotta go see Shino, haven't talked to him yet. With that, Naruto walked out after a quick handshake, followed by an awkward hug, and used Hiruzen to get to the Aburame estate. Aburame estate, Shino was out on the back lawn meditating. Normally when people meditate, they seek silence. However, for an Aburame, it is best to be once with nature. Allowing his bugs to flow around him, Shino could tell if anyone was around, even a mile feet away, without chakra, or any of his senses, just his bugs. It was because of this that Shino was very surprised to feel a tap on his shoulder. He did not jump, as Aburames, at the most, raised their eyebrows when surprised. This is exactly what Shino's eyebrows did. Looking up from underneath his cloak's hood, he saw Naruto, white fire receding behind 4 of 14 kanji seals in his eyes. Greetings Naruto, Shino said in monotone. Hello Shino. You may lower your eyebrows now, no reason to be surprised. Naruto finished teasingly. Shino cracked his old small smile. I heard about your trip already so don't bother. I usually leave a bug in the Hokage's office, as do the rest of the Aburame, in case Hokage-sama needs something from us. Interesting story. So, anything to add to your report? Naruto was relieved he didn't even have to go through a summary again. Not much. I'm taking a team. Did you hear all that I've said to the Hokage? Yes, and I know you'll be the next one. Don't worry, there is more to our secretive nature than just the fact that our abilities seem to extradite us from others. Shino responded in the still monotone voice. Saves more time I guess. Anyway, what have you been up to? Training, doing missions. I'm a jounin now, and clan heir. I'm set to marry a woman from a clan with has joined with us, just 2 years ago. They use fire ants, really quite interesting. They don't drain chakra, they damage muscles. It's a physical attack as opposed to ours, but they can make theirs drain chakra with techniques as well. Wedding is set for when she turns 18, in 3 years. Wait a minute. Aren't you gay? Yes, an awkward silence followed as Shino did not feel the need to elaborate. Naruto shifted uncomfortably, then started the conversation again. After chatting about politics and other stuff for an hour, they ate lunch at his house, then Naruto had to leave for the academy. After all, he wanted to pick up his team on time. At the academy, Chuji was at the front of the classroom of students, silent while Irika talked to all those who passed. They were crammed into the room, filling all the seats and 3 being forced to sit on the floor. The badasses from both rooms were next to each other, causing a veritable mass of fangirl love to be sent in that direction, so powerful it was almost visible. Just because they're skilled doesn't mean they aren't fangirls. Meanwhile, Vlad was sitting next to Shinomura and his only other friend, an Akimichi boy named Churo. They had just finished being told by Irika how the ninja world was full of challenges and that they would be on a hard path from now on. The 17 teams of students were then called, and many waited with rapt attention to see who their sensei would be, most of them hoping they got Naruto, the boy that had turned Vlad into a skilled genin in just a week. Team 13, Owara Ganju, Wakashi Timio, and Jigon Laura. Your sensei will be Hatake Kakashi. Team 14, Shinomura Asuka, Taltos Vladimir, and Akimichi Churo. Your sensei will be Namikaze Naruto. Irika continued announcing the teams, but the three who had just been called were frozen at their seats. Simultaneously they all thought, we're all on the same team. This is gonna be awesome. After a few moments, Irika finished his speech and the jounins that were there took their students. Only 4 teams were left. Then 3. Then just teams 13 and 14. It was about noon, they had waited an hour, and Naruto still wasn't there. The teams chatted amongst their members for a few more hours, before Naruto and Kakashi both showed up. Kakashi entered in a burst of smoke, while Naruto simply emitted a yellow flash of light. They looked at each other, both embarrassed that someone had seen them be that late, but simply shrugged it off and took their teams. Team 13 followed Kakashi up to the roof, while Naruto stayed in the room, looking them over. Then, finishing his quick inspection, he spoke. Well, we're a team. Tomorrow you guys will do survival training to see what level of missions you'll be capable of, then the training will start. Before you get too excited, we won't be doing the speed training I did with Vlad. It was a huge drain on his system, he won't be able to train like that again for a while. Now then. Don't worry if you fail the test tomorrow, it just means you'll do lower ranked missions. Meet me at Training Ground 6 tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bye. Naruto was about to Hiruzen away when he heard Shinomura speak up. Sensei, can't we get to know you a bit? I mean, if we're a team, we need to act as one, right? Naruto thought briefly, then nodded. Internally, he felt he didn't want to get too close to them else he'd have a hard time taking his position later on, but being friends at least didn't seem like a bad idea. Okay then, we'll get to know each other. Since you asked, you go first. Say your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dream, that kind of stuff. I am Shinomura Asuka. I like Vladimirkin and learning new techniques. I dislike people who put others down instead of trying to help them. My hobbies are gardening and training, and my dream is to be a hunter nin, and take down enemies of this world. At the last part, Naruto was simply thinking, wow, I got a righteous one here. Well, better than a fangirl. While Vlad was thinking, Kun. I'm Vladimirkin. Okay, that was interesting. You, big-boned guy, you're up. Naruto said, knowing that calling an Akimichi fat was to ask for a death wish. I'm Akimichi Churo. I like anything barbecued, and expansion techniques. I dislike bullies and people that call others fat. He paused, spitting the word fat like it was poison, then continued. My hobbies are learning my family jutsus and eating barbecue, and my dream is to create the perfect Akimichi pills. I'm Vladimir Taltos. I like learning stealth techniques and poetry. I dislike my parents. Got what they deserved. My hobbies are writing poetry, training, and learning manipulation, and my dream for the future is to re-establish my clan and destroy those that wiped us out. At that, the other two looked at him oddly, before they all turned their attention to Naruto. I am Namikaze Naruto. I like Hinataken, Tenshin, Tamarikan, and my students. Well, for now on that last one. I dislike people who cheat to get their power, and people who manipulate others, or live for hatred. My hobbies are training and meditation, and in the future I want to be Hokage, and rebuild my clan with my wives. Now that that's over, see you all tomorrow. And make sure to get a good night's sleep, it'll be the hardest thing you've ever done. With that, Naruto disappeared, only a vanishing Hiruzen seal left in his wake. He stopped moving for a second, and bit his thumb. Swiping the blood across the blood-resistant leather of the leaf symbol on his left fingerless glove, the ironing board with wind seals appeared. Jumping on, Naruto pumped 5% of his chakra into it, way more than what 5% had been before, and shot off at nearly 100 miles per hour. The hot springs. Naruto had landed in front of Konoha's hot springs, gotten in trance, stripped, put on a towel, and was currently in the mixed baths once again. A week gone by already, and Naruto was looking forward to having someone to talk to, even a nearly naked woman he didn't know. The men's side was closed for the day, an occurrence involving a peeping older man with white hair leading to the destruction of parts of the spring, which would need to be fixed. No other man dared to go into the shared side, since the woman in there was supposed to be crazy. Anko, the snake whore of Konoha, was observing Naruto as he slid himself into the spring. "Hey Anko-san," Naruto said, eyes closed, head leaning back while he enjoyed the spring. Anko couldn't think of anything to say. The man had the body of a Greek god, and with her current appearance, which she had been making appear younger with Tsuanda's help, so that she looked about 20 instead of 28, she felt she had a pretty good chance at him. "Hello Naruto-kun. Enjoying the scent in the air?" Smells like Ank." This is when Naruto realized Anko had moved next to him, one hand resting on his left shoulder, arm draped across him, and her other hand tracing circles on his chest. So fast. I didn't even sense her moving. "Smells like what?" Anko whispered in his ear. "Smells like Ankakan," Naruto said, immediately after thinking as to why it had just changed to Ankakan. Anko noticed this as well, and used it to her advantage. "Ankakan I guess I am young enough. Want to see just how young I am? It's well worth it." I saw how big he was through the window. A voice said from behind them. Ino was standing there. Nude. Now, normally Naruto had no problem keeping himself under control. He had 3 beautiful fiancées at home, all perfectly willing for him, and all loving him, he loving them back with all his heart and soul. However, with Anko draped over him, her hips moving and crotch gently rubbing against him, with a completely nude Ino in front of him, in a seductive pose, Naruto was left helpless. His manhood became fully stiff from the sight. Because Ino was gorgeous. Ino, 5 feet 6 inches tall, platinum blonde hair, cup bust, thin body, beautiful hips, a tight, firm butt, slender thighs and calves, and perfect feet, not to mention her cute face which could cause death from blood loss with just a casual wink, and her sky-blue eyes, the steam giving her a heavenly aura and the little patch of blonde hair just above her entrance hiding her just a teensy bit beyond sight. Scratch that, Naruto didn't just have the world's biggest stiffy, he had blood coming from his nose, and his head bent back far into a position that shouldn't have been humanly possible. All faded to black. When he awoke, he was on the side of the spring, his towel removed, though it would have been making a tent if it hadn't been. There in front of him, was just Ino. She had a towel on, and an apologetic look. Before he could speak, she began, in a quiet voice. "Sorry. Naruto-kun. It's just, for 5 years I heard how great you were from Tenten and Hinata. I got distanced from them because I couldn't take part in anything anymore. Everything they talked about was either you or politics, and I couldn't or didn't want to talk about those things. But I saw you training Vlad, I see what they were talking about then. I saw how you act. Responsible, and at the same time, you're fun. You're the type of person I'd once imagined Sasuke would be. But I was wrong. He killed my best friend, and I just don't want to be alone anymore. Ino grew gradually more upset as she talked, and in the end threw herself on top of him, crying into his shoulder. He held her close to him, comforting her while she cried, until she wore herself out. Naruto-kun. I want to be with you too. I like you a lot, and I just want to be part of the world again. Do you think you could, at least give me a chance? Naruto was not one to turn an emotionally hurt woman away, but couldn't outright say yes, as that was something he'd promised to Hinata, and he kept his promises. Ino. I'll give you the chance, but only if you can convince Hinata. I'm sure she won't have a problem with it. Do you want me to stay with you? Ino shook her head in the negative, as she slid back into the springs. She looked like she just had a lot to think about. Naruto gave her a last gaze, then slid back into the men's locker room, getting his clothes on and going home. Namake's estate, Naruto decided not to tell Hinata all of what happened, informing her just of how their meetings went both times, and that Ino seemed to like him and asked him out, leaving out the emotionally crippled bit, as Ino would need to work that out with Hinata herself. Soon, Hinata, Tenten, Temari, and Naruto himself were all in his big soft bed, snuggled up to each other, Temari and Hinata on Naruto's sides, Tenten having drawn the short straw. They all soon fell asleep, slipping into dreams of Naruto, 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 and for the male member of the group, Tenten, Temari, Hinata, and Ino all in a hot spring doing fun things. Tomorrow, it would all begin again. Elsewhere, 3 figures in dark cloaks with red clouds on them stood before about 15 corpses, all dressed the same way. All 3 figures opened their eyes. None of them quite normal. The man in the middle asked, "What do we do now?" "Now we get the last 2 demons. Shikaku. Kyuubi. You may have been banished, but you can be retrieved. Konoha will fall," said the man on the left, a little shorter. The shortest man muttered out his comment, his voice echoing in the dark empty chamber. The war. Ominous lightning sounded, as they began to pick up the corpses of the men who were once their allies. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.